couldn't. I love the night. That's the only time I feel really alive.
That's what David wanted.
Blood, I was to find, was a necessity as well.
A vampire in love with a slayer. It's rather poetic. I am the monster the breathing men would kill. I am Dracula.
Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down, and you know what that means. It's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead. As always, I'm your host, Lena Nazari. If you've been watching me on YouTube, you've seen a month and a half of the subspecies universe. So I'm very, very excited to have wrapped that up and completed that and move on to something else. And what are we doing in August? We are doing viewers' requests. I threw it out there on my social media. I said, you tell me what you want me to cover, and you guys did not disappoint. I have 5 to cover in August that I had never seen before that you want me to cover. So this is very, very exciting. If you're not following me on Instagram, please go. I have a lot planned in September and October. I don't want you to miss out. Right now, I'll be doing the Vampire Museum on October 25th. I'll be at the Vampire Masquerade Ball October 30th through November 2nd in New Orleans. And then the weekend before Thanksgiving, I will be at Monster Mania. I'm on the wait list for Animate Philly, which will be the first weekend of October. I will keep you updated. And next week I will be at the Spooky Market, the very first one here in Pittsburgh, so I'm excited. So if you're not following me on social media, you're going to miss all the fun pictures and stuff and the updates about Alex. So the goal is to have Alex out the day after Labor Day, so I will keep you all updated. Instagram is where to find out. I do have a mailing list on my website, but I've been having so many problems. I can't send anything out. I need to just get on the phone with them and try and figure out what the problem is. But in the meantime, Instagram really is where you want to be following me, because that's where you're going to know everything I'm doing, YouTube and all. So, all right. I think that's everything. This week, we will be talking about Blood, the Last Vampire. And this was recommended to me by Daniel Faw 4652. At Daniel Faw 4652. Thank you so much for this one. This was a lot of fun. I looked it up and I saw that it was also an anime and also a manga. I really wanted to do all of them, but I don't have the time. But I promise I will do it in the future. For this week, Daniel, we are doing Blood the Last Vampire, the live action adaptation from 2009. Let's do it. Let's break down the universe of this movie. We start with on-screen text, which tells us, in the 16th century, the savage Onin War reduced Japan into a massive feeding ground. Assuming human forms, demons settled in among mortals to prey on the bloodshed. A fearless samurai named Kayumasa rose from the heart of evil and became the most revered demon hunter, only to be brutally slain by the oldest, vilest of all the demons, Onegin. Centuries passed, darkness reigns on, then a mysterious hunter emerged, joining forces with a shadowy society known as the Council. She sets out to face her ultimate foe, Onegin. So we see it's Tokyo in 1970, and a young girl sits on a subway. A man with glasses is also on the subway, reading from a paper. She notices a drop of sweat on his forehead and the lights overhead flicker. The man runs from one car to the next as the girl follows. She pulls a samurai sword and turns to attack. And he turns to attack. And then she slices him down the center, and then we get our title card. So, heck of an opening. We see men waiting on the subway platform as the train stops. She calmly gets off. A couple of the men go on to the subway, and a man in a hat named Michael follows the woman, calling her Saya. So we know who she is now. And he's telling her to get to work. She stops and turns to him. Meanwhile, one of the other men, Luke, has gone onto the train and found the body. He comes out and says, she killed a human. Michael says, it's because it didn't have time to shift. Saya walks off silently, and Michael tells her to get some rest. Luke says she's out of control, but Michael explains that they need her. Meanwhile, the men start to clean up the crime scene. At a hotel, we see Saya pull a bottle from the fridge and gulp down the liquid, and when she's done, she appears to be wiping blood off her lips. Later, Saya is walking down an empty street, and we get a flashback. In it, young Saya is having her hair brushed by a man named Kato, I think. Kato? We're going to go with Kato. I think that sounds cooler. He tells her that her father, a demon hunter, could tell they were demons just by looking into their eyes and seeing that they have no soul. Her father was killed by Onegin, the oldest, vilest demon of them all, and it is her destiny to avenge her father's death and continue his mission. Back in 1970, Michael is showing Saya photos of dead people, and we see that their heads are gone, and there's like what looks like a burst pattern of blood around them. He's explaining there have been 3 deaths in the last week on this American Air Force base. She explains underlings are feeding without discretion, which means Onegin is near. So that already tells me there's sort of masters, and then we'll call them, she calls them underlings, so that's what we'll call them. He gives her a brown bag that she puts in the fridge. He says that the council wants her undercover on the base to find more leads, which she states, I kill, I don't investigate. He tells her kill the underlings to lure out Onegin, but to let the blood mutate first. Someone named the Elder has pulled strings to arrange her cover. He taps on a suitcase and says, there's an outfit in there for you, and then he leaves. So now we're on an Air Force base.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's sunny, and we get shots all over the base and music to let you know it's the 70s. A girl named Alice is being driven to school by her dad, who's in uniform and a general. He confronts her about stealing his car the previous night and hanging out in a place called the Hippie Shack, until 4 a.m. He explains that people all over the base report to him what she is doing. She gets out of the car and heads to school, where Saya is being walked down the hallway as a new student. The other students are all Americans. We get to see some racism right out of the gates.
35.
She must be lost. Thinks it's a Navy base.
I can't believe they let a Jap enroll here.
Oh, next thing you know, they think they own the place.
So that tells us that these 2 girls are sort of the mean girls. That's a quick way to show us that. Michael's outside, and he assures his boss that their plan worked. The base thinks that she's part of a CIA plan and has no idea about the council or why she's there. Then we see a janitor head into a locker room at the school to clean. We see a shadow on the door. She's attacked. And then we see blood splatter on the door. In class, they're discussing Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The book, not the horrible movie. And we see like the mean girls who are bullying Saya and Alice. So now we know that Alice is also an outsider. Later, they're all being taught sword fighting. We see that Alice is struggling, and the teacher tells her to practice more since she's bringing the whole team down and the tournament is next week. He basically forces her to train with these 2 mean girls, and they are kicking her ass. Saya is reading their files. One kicks Alice in the stomach, and she slides out of the training room. Saya steps into the room, blocks the door so Alice can't get back in. Then Saya pulls a samurai sword, kicks both mean girls' asses, which Alice watches through a vent. The head mean girl reveals her nature when her eyes turn black, then red, and there's like visible vasculature. Saya chops off her head. Alice runs out of the school, passing twin men carrying briefcases, who we can tell very quickly is from the council. In the next scene, we see the general in a car with Alice. He gets out of his car, and he, along with some fellow soldiers, approach the car. that has these twin men inside. Before they can be forced out of the car, Michael approaches the general and flashes a CIA badge, telling the general that they're all with the CIA. He tells the general that Langley sent them to help with the war effort and they should all work together. The general tells the soldier to keep an eye on the agents while he goes inside the school. Alice is telling her father what she saw, but there's no signs of bodies, no signs of a fight, so clearly the council already came in and cleaned up. The general asks who Saya is and is told by one of his men that she's the daughter of a soon-to-be appointed ambassador to D.C., so her enrollment in the school came from high up. The general doesn't care. He says, get a warrant and find that girl. But he doesn't have any power over the agents, and whoever he speaks to on the phone tells him to butt out. Luke is talking to Michael and says, why would you put Saya in high school? She's older than all of us combined. So there was our other clue. So we've seen her drinking blood, and now we know she's older than all these men combined. So we're talking hundreds of years. Michael gets a message that says the elder wants to see us. Uh-oh. That night at their home, Alice is trying to tell her dad what she saw, and that Linda, who I guess is one of the mean girls / demons, didn't have normal blood. He tells her to get some rest and then answers a call. It's his right-hand man, Frank, who tells him there is no soon-to-be ambassador. Alice steals her dad's car and sneaks out. In town, Luke and Michael go to a restaurant and approach a man eating soup. So we assume this is the elder. They sit down. He says, rumor has it that General McKee has called Langley and Washington curious about both of you. Was that part of your plan? He explains the importance of the council remaining anonymous, then shows them photos from a plane crash that occurred that morning. The bodies are headless, just like the photos that Michael showed Saya earlier, and they believe this is Onegin's work, and she is in town. Now we see a beautiful woman with very long hair and sunglasses arrive at a resort. As she's being led to her room, the attendant steps on a spider, killing it. The woman snaps her fingers and his head explodes, so we know that this woman is Onegin. She turns to the foliage around the resort and says, come out, my children, the feeding season has begun. Alice follows her sword fighting coach, who we learn is Mr. Powell, off base and into town to a club. Alice goes into the club as Saya watches. Alice confronts Mr. Powell, saying, you knew Sharon and Linda were going to hurt me. He says, you think your daddy's war is all that's going on, but you don't see there's a war between your kind and mine. Your end is upon you. So now we know that Mr. Powell is one of these demons. So she looks around, she sees that everyone in the club, including Mr. Powell, has red eyes and a mouthful of sharp teeth. She's chased up the stairs, climbs out a window, then down to the street below. They all found her. They're chasing her down the street into an alleyway where she's surrounded by the demons. Saya shows up, taking out demons with a giant hammer. The girls run, but eventually they're in the middle of a street surrounded by a massive crowd. Saya draws her sword and is able to take out every demon while still protecting Alice. When all of them are wiped out, Mr. Powell comes out. He roars, pulls at these lights like all float all around him, and then he transforms into a monster, grabs Alice, carries her up onto a rooftop, and throws her down. But Saya follows and she starts fighting this like monster demon. During the fight, we see for a brief second, Saya's face transforms. She has the exaggerated vasculature. Her eyes turn red as she screams and throws the beast off of her. He grabs Alice and runs, jumping from rooftop to rooftop while holding the girl. Saya grabs her sword and follows. She's able to run fast, jump from rooftop to rooftop, and is extremely agile. She slices at the demon, wounding him enough for him to drop Alice, but he's not dead. He roars at the girls, leaps off the building, and then unfurls wings and flies away. Alice drives Saya back to base, telling her to hide in the back of the Jeep. They find the demon flying after a plane that's about to take off. He grabs the wing, and I think it's in hopes of getting away since he's wounded. The girls race the jeep up to the demon. Saya slices at him, wounding him again, so he falls to the ground. Saya approaches the dying demon, and we see flashes of one of her memories, and it's Kato telling her, Kato, I think I said Kato, that she is not a demon like them because she has a soul. Saya slices her palm, squeezes some of her blood into the dying demon's mouth, and it dies. In town, the twin men from the council are in the alleyway cleaning up outside the club. I'm guessing cleaning up after Saya, and Frank sneaks up to the car and uses a crowbar to open the trunk. At the resort, Onegin comes out into the night and smiles, and there's her like right-hand man, and she says she's close. Saya is cleaning up Alice's wounds back in her hotel, or in some, it's not her hotel, it's like some random room. I'm not sure where they're at. Somewhere on base, I guess. She's explaining to her that Mr. Powell, Sharon, and Linda never existed. They're bloodsuckers who took human form, and there are more out there than she can imagine. Alice says, "What can I do to help?" And Saya tells her, "Go home and forget everything." She tells her not to tell anyone, that anyone she tells will be at risk. And Alice says, "Well, he won't believe me anyways." Pause. So this, I was very confused for a little while. I thought Saya was a vampire who was working for the council fighting demons. But this is the moment where I was like, oh, they're all supposed to be vampires, okay? So Onegin is like master vampire, and then the underlings are, you know, sort of like the fledglings, I guess. And they can mutate into like, they can vamp out, I guess. And when they vamp out, they look like demons. And then they can also do something kind of in between. And this is where I was like, oh, I see. So like in this world, the vampires are replaced with demons, or the vampires were never human. They were always demons. So they use the word vampire and demon very interchangeably. So just in case you were just as confused as me, this was the moment where I figured it out. At the general's house, Frank has brought one of the councilmen's briefcases to the general. They open it and find equipment inside that looks like some kind of mysterious tech. He tells Frank to call the tech guys, but Luke has arrived. He offers to give the general Saya, saying she's not with the agency and she is out of control. The general agrees, and Luke tells them which hotel room to find Saya in. As he's writing it down, Luke injects Frank in the neck with something and then uses Frank's gun to shoot the general. As Luke is setting up the scene to make it look like the two men shot each other, Alice comes in. The dying general tells her to run, and she does. Luke follows, gun drawn, and is cracked in the face by Alice, who's holding a pool stick. She wails on Luke while he's on the ground unconscious, and then returns to her dad. With his last words, he tells her that he loves her and to get off base. Luke comes to, grabs his gun, stands and heads for Alice, but she's already running. She's grabbed the notepad that Frank wrote Saya's address on. At Saya's place, Michael is showing Saya pictures from the kills at the resort, so they know that Onegin is there and probably looking for Saya. Michael leaves, and Saya takes a big swig of bottled blood when she senses someone outside her door. So she grabs her sword, opens the door, and pulls in Alice. A man on the rooftop of the adjacent building walkies down to Frank, saying, "You're right, she showed." And Frank says, "Take her out." So the man has a sniper rifle and is setting his sights on Alice through a window into Saya's room. Alice says to Saya, "The people that you work for killed my dad." And she says, "I don't work for them. I kill the bloodsuckers and they give me what I need to survive. That's all." Michael hears the shots and runs back towards the hotel as Saya sees the man on the rooftop, grabs Alice, pulls them both to the floor as the shot is taken and missed. The girls run into the hallway, but Luke is approaching with a gun drawn. He says, "Give me the girl, Saya. This has nothing to do with you, halfling." Michael shows up behind Luke and draws his gun. Saya tells Michael that Luke killed the general and wants the girl. Both men put their guns away, so Michael passes Luke to ask the girls if they're all right, and then Luke shoots Michael in the back, which I did not see coming. Saya runs at Luke as he fires off a few shots and then slices off Luke's hand, deciding not to kill him when she sees that Alice is watching. They leave him on the hallway floor and run, stealing a truck and going on the run. The truck radio reports that the general died of a heart attack, and they're looking for his daughter Alice, who is mentally unstable and may be at risk. Saya has passed out. Alice realizes she was shot by Luke when running towards him earlier. She drags her out of the truck and onto the road, but Saya is passed out and bleeding bad. Alice slices her hand open with Saya's sword and drips the blood into Saya's mouth. This wakes her up and she asks Alice, "Why would you save me?" And then Saya tells us a story. And we see it in a flashback. Kato raised her in a mountain village where she had one friend, a little boy. As they grew, they fell in love. But one day she lost control, having a dream that she killed him, only to wake up and realize it wasn't a dream. Kato tells her the demons found them and they need to run. He gives her her father's sword, explaining it has gathered the powers of each demon it has killed. He tells her to hide until she's ready to fight the demons, and then he runs into the forest to do what he calls my duty. In present time, Alice is crying. Saya is trying to recover from her wounds, and they're in some kind of abandoned building. Saya says she never knew her mother, and her father died only days after she was born, murdered by Onegin, the oldest and most powerful demon. Kato saved her, raised her, and trained her so that when he died, she could protect herself from demons. We see in the flashback that she was coming to fight with Kato, but it was too late. As she was fighting her way to him, she was able to stab his attacker in the eye, but Kato was already beyond help. That's the moment that she stopped aging, I think, because she was like, this is when time stood still. She is now driven only by her need to kill Onegin. Onegin is standing in Saya's hotel room, and we know that she's getting close, and her right-hand man removes his glasses, and we see that this is the demon who Saya stabbed in the eye in her flashback. He's the one that killed Kato. Onegin explains to him that Saya's powers are far beyond what they used to be. The girls are driving when a winged demon with a scarred eye lands on the hood. Alice slams on the brakes, sending the demon flying into the road, and it flies away. They start to drive again. This time he attacks the driver's side. So they swerve to slam him into the mountainside and keep driving, but this time he comes from above, ripping off the top of the truck. The car goes over the edge and starts to fall down into the ravine. As Saya jumps out and is slicing at the demon in the air, the truck becomes wedged between the two mountains and it's on its side. Saya lands on it, and her and the demon fight on the truck as it's slowly starting to slide down. Mid-fight, the door opens and Alice starts to fall, but Saya grabs her and throws her up. They're both hanging from the truck now. They try to climb up, but the demon is attacking. So she stabs him and goes into the truck, and he goes into the truck, and then the truck plummets down into darkness. Now we cut to Alice. She's passed out on the ground, and it's daylight. Saya looks around and sees a home, which she wanders into. Alice wakes up and says, "This isn't happening, any of this." Saya is inside the home when we see that it's the one that she was raised in by Kato. The little boy that she was friends with when she was little is there, and he reaches for her. She drops to her knees in front of him and they hug. She holds his hand and walks outside, but Alice says he isn't real. She looks back, and now the boy is like all made of ash. Then Onegin is standing next to him, and she turns to the ash and it blows away. Onegin says, "I found you and you found me. Look at you, eaten up by the guilt over one human, but no regret for so many of your kind that you have killed."
I gave you your strength. I gave you your power. I gave you immortality, my daughter.
They fight, and while Onegin is giving her villain monologue, Alice stabs her from behind. Onegin grabs her by the throat, and flames erupt around them. There's an explosion. Saya is thrown out into the water. When the smoke clears, Onegin is in the air holding Alice up above her. She throws her and Saya's eyes turn red. They fight again, and it ends with Saya straddling Onegin, who says, "Kill me and become me." Saya stabs her mother and screams. We see an ambulance and Alice is in the back. Later, she's being questioned and no one believes her. She's told that she was found in a truck at the bottom of a ravine. They ask her about Saya, whose identity was fake, and she says she's trying to find her way back from the other side of the looking glass. And then we see that she's in the place that she was raised, but it's beautiful and it's green again. Then we see her on a subway car as she looks at the camera with a soft, knowing smile, and then we get credits. So, let's talk about tropes I love and tropes I hate. I do love the secret society of hunters. That's a real favorite of mine. And in this one, they hire a vampire to help them hunt. So it's very Blade, and I'm here for it. And we love the whole half vampire, half hunter love child thing. That being said, I am not a fan of vampires having babies. So, you know, I'm complicated because I don't like when vampires have babies, but I also love the idea of a half vampire, half hunter baby. So, complicated. Let's talk a little bit about the vampires. So once I realized they were all vampires, they can be in the sunlight. We see them in the sunlight. Apparently they can be in full demon form, so they were demons. And Saya says that Linda, the two mean girls, were never human. So that tells us that they're born vampires, I guess, or they crawled up from hell and they're actual vampire demons. We see that they can look human, but then they can also mutate, and we also see halfway in between. We know that being stabbed with Saya's sword will kill them, beheaded, lit on fire, kind of the usuals. I'm a little confused about, she's born half vampire, and then she like grows to a certain age, and then she just stops growing. So that was a little bit confusing. The vampire stuff was not super duper clear. So I was a little confused about the vampires. Let's do the ratings. How sexy or alluring are the vampires of Blood the Last Vampire? Well, they get their honorary vamp point, but I can't really give them anything else. I don't think they care about sex. We never see them use sensuality to trap their prey. No one is like specifically drawn to them or in love with them. We do not know the story of how Onegin and this like big vampire hunter end up with a baby. I don't know if she used mind control or what happened, but this was an easy one. 1 out of 10 onks for sexiness and allure. I don't feel bad about that at all. How scary or evil are the vampires? Let's see. They're demons. Except Saya, I'm guessing, because she's half human. So we're going to leave her out of this, okay? She's not part of this rating. The vampires can change and turn into monsters, but when they're in human form, they're very hard to recognize. We see the students in the daytime, so they're not bound by the sunlight. They appear to be very strong, but they are killable, even Onegin. Plus, there's a whole secret society all over the world that's tracking them down and killing them. They do need blood, so they do kill humans. We know that. We know that Onegin can like snap her fingers and blow up heads. We also see the coach fly when he's in monster form. Plus, the head vampire can apparently pull you into like an other dimension and mess with your head and your reality. So, 8.5 out of 10, stakes to the heart for scariness and evil. I'll tell you, I would not want to come up against one of these vampires. I would not. So my thoughts. Sometimes with this podcast, I get bored because I see the same old vampire stuff, like the same scripts, the same tropes, the same whatever. This one was something totally different, and it did keep my attention. I will say, as soon as I saw Onegin, I knew the twist right out of the gate. As soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, that's Saya's mom. But I did not see the whole like being pulled into a different dimension thing. I did not see that coming. The CGI does not hold up at all. The monsters do not hold up. However, the movie is kind of eye-catching. The fights are like kind of beautiful to watch, and the settings are all very beautiful. Saya and Alice were a great team up. I was definitely rooting for them by the end. I'm gonna need to watch the anime, and I saw there was a manga, so I do want to cover those one day. I did really enjoy this. I would recommend this to somebody who doesn't necessarily love vampires, but they love live action anime, or they love action in general. I think this was from the makers of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. If they like those kind of films, they would probably really enjoy this. I do wish the vampires were a little more thought out. Maybe there's more in the anime or the manga about the vampires, so I'm gonna hold my thoughts on that until I take a look at those, because for me it just felt like the vampires were not very well fleshed out, and I was very confused about all the rules. But we'll hold off until I can see the other stuff. If you made it to the end, type Onigan in the comments. Let me know what you'd like to see me cover. I am going to do viewer requests again in November, so if you want one of those slots, you need to let me know now. Join me next week. So we're going to talk about Habit, which is a 90s movie that I'm not familiar with, so I'm very excited. I really enjoy being introduced to these movies by you guys, so let me know down below. I'm really excited, and I can't wait to see what everybody else wants me to talk about. In the meantime, I hope you're enjoying your summer. I can almost smell pumpkin in the air. I'm so ready. But of course, as always, I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening.
And big finish. Thank you.